It's my great pleasure to have some time today to discuss with you gender gap in oncology and maybe describe what was until today the European Society for Medical Oncology approach, the ESMO approach. First of all, and to start, it's quite important to keep in mind that gender equality belongs to what we call the Sdgs, the Sustainable Development Goals. As you can see here on point 5, it is considered to be one of the aims which will help us reaching a stable and balanced society globally. This is the ESMO Vision 2025, and I'd like you to remember about these 3 pillars, which should move with ESMO and with us in the next 5 years. First of all, ESMO has a mission to educate everywhere adequately. We have a mission to defend accessible, optimal cancer care, but more important than anything about the topic of gender gap, we have to cover diversity. We are one oncology community. And this is about the ESMO today. I think we are a good picture of what should be the oncology society tomorrow. With more than 25,000 members from more than 160 countries, we now have half of our members who are women. We cover now more than 40 specialties and specialists for more than 160 countries. And very importantly, half of our members are less than 40 years old. So how can we make sure that the chances to all are the same? Basically, recognizing diversity is probably the first thing to do and act on them. ESMO values diversity as today a leading principle. Diversity is sought through inclusion in all its forms: specialties, age, geographies, gender, and cultures. By serving an ever-growing base of doctors everywhere, ESMO strives for optimal cancer care to become accessible to as many cancer patients as possible. And last but not least, everything is about our global collaboration, paying attention to everything which makes us different, our local specificities. And this is maybe the picture we try to reflect in our Women for Oncology committee, where you can see that more and more, and I hope it's one of the aim of my presidency, you can see the diversity of our members. The mission of the ESMO Women for Oncology initiative is to raise awareness and promoting equal access to career development opportunities for women oncologists, while providing a platform for networking with other women oncologists and national groups. So let's start basically with some concepts about gender gap. And this is the gender equality strategy from 18 to 23 from what we call the Council of Europe. So really the authority in Europe looking at basics in politics. And I'd like you to read this introduction. Even if progress is visible and the legal status of women in Europe has undoubtedly improved during recent decades, effective equality between women and men is far from being a reality. Gender gaps and structural barriers persist in many areas, which limit women and men to their traditional roles and constrain women's opportunity to benefit from their fundamental rights. So really, it's a very strong statement, politically speaking, from one of the authority in politics. And this has been further, I would say, described at what we call the big economic place, the World Economic Forum, where was published in 2018, the Global Gender Gap Report. It's a wonderful report. I invite you to download it, which examines 4 index, which are 4 fundamental categories speaking about the commitment of people: economic participations and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. And you can see the index here speaking about the role of women as compared to men. So how much women can be involved as compared to men. And on the right hand side, the global index taking the 4 parameters into account by continent. And as you can see, where the women have the less, I would say, presence is political empowerment with 22%, and of course, economic participation with 59%. And the calculation from our economists at that time was to publicly state that based on today's status and the trend observed over the past 12 years, it will now take 202 years to close the economic gap for women. So I think very important statements here. So let's look at healthcare. if you look at healthcare and keeping in mind this sustainable development goal, good health, well-being, and gender equality, in healthcare, 3% are CEOs in US, 6% are department chairs in US, 9% are division chief, and however, 3% serving as chief medical officers. However, 80% of the healthcare workforce are women. And this is the US picture. What is the global picture? You can find it in the WHO Health Workforce Working Paper in 2019, where they describe 70% of workers in the health and social sector being women, but unfortunately also describing that female health workers are paid approximately 28% less than males. Once you correct with occupation and working hours, we will see it later on, in the global level, at the global level, the gender pay gap is still 11%. And it is a call in that paper for transformative policies, addressing inequities and eliminating gender-based discrimination, removing barrier to full-time employment, and support access to professional development to women. So this is the WHO paper, right? Remember that Lancet has made a call in their own structure, but also globally and generally to fight against gender imbalance. I invite you to look at this call, but really describing the considerable and persistent gender gap in science and medicine in all the fields you can imagine: career advancement, remuneration, leadership opportunities, also evoking sexual harassment, care and domestic burdens and assessments. Gender bias is unjustified and unacceptable. We need to fix the system, not women. So a very important call, right? And of course, everything has gone worse, has been amplified by COVID-19 pandemic. Just a little, I would say, go around with you about the pay gap. So pay gap is a comparison between men's and women's typical earnings, right? You really do the ratio and the subtraction to look at the gap, the men minus the woman divided by the men. So very importantly, if you look at the US picture, right? If you look at the gap in the same, I would say, working discipline, the woman earn 81 cents for a dollar of a man. But if you control in terms of job qualification, so for the exact same job and exact same qualification, then you might compensate up to 98 cents. So what does it mean? It means that the problem is women are not granted the same positions as men. And this is true for any kind of position. There is a little gap if you control for the same job, which is unacceptable in pink, but in all of these positions, women are simply underrepresented. So really meaning that the problem is the qualification which is granted to women, creating a gender gap. So how do women manage the gendered norms of leadership? Do we have any problem with leadership? Probably yes, because a wealth of research have shown that female leaders, much more than men, have to face the need to be what we call warm and nice, what society traditionally expects for women, as well in parallel as being competent or tough. The problem is that these qualities are often seen as opposites. And you can see all the paradoxes it imposes to women and endangers women. For example, paradox one is demanding yet carrying. Paradox two, authoritative yet participative. Paradox three, advocating for themselves yet serving others. And paradox four, maintaining distance yet being approachable. So all of this paradox make that women can be sometimes considered as not doing everything we want from them. And sometimes they are accused not to be proactive enough because this mix of, I would say, psychological situation might be confusing. And there is this wonderful Harvard Business Review study where they compared in a large firm where the women were underrepresented in the upper management, they compared the behavior of men and women. And it's interesting to see the result. Men and women behave the same. They have the same number of contacts, spend the same amount of time with senior leaders, and allocate their time similarly. They also spend the same amount of time in online and face-to-face conversations. The conclusion of this wonderful study is this one. Our analysis suggests that the difference in promotion rates between men and women in this company was due not to their behavior, but to how they were treated. Gender inequality is due to bias, not differences in behavior. So going back to the paradox before, we know how to deal with the paradox because obviously at the end, we really manage to be as productive as men. But of course, everything is about stereotypes. And I like this other Harvard Business Review study trying to look at venture capitalists and the way they speak about the applicants for funding between male and female. And you can just read this wording, right? A male is young and promising. A woman is young but inexperienced. I can take other example. A man is aggressive but a really good entrepreneur. The woman is enthusiastic but weak. So broadly, the research suggests that stereotyping through languages underpins the image of a man as a true entrepreneur while undermining the image of a woman. So don't forget about stereotypes. Last but not least, the burnout. We made this study about burnout in young oncologists. Remember, burnout is emotional exhaustion, feelings of cynicism, depersonalization, and a loss of purpose and meaning in work. It can occur at all stages of training and at all stages of career. And it is recognized more and more as an issue amongst healthcare professionals. And when we did our study on burnout on ESMO, we could do this multivariate analysis, trying to understand what are the factors which significantly impose a risk of being burnt out. As you can see, by the way, on the map, the level of burnout is amazingly high, unexpectedly high in this survey, which was focusing on oncologists under or equal to 40 years old, almost 600 of them. But when you look at this multivariate analysis, remember that what is one cause of burnout is the absence of good work-life balance, which usually is a topic which is brought in all of the surveys, mainly by women, because women have to have this paradox, this dual role in social life, in family life, and in professional life. So what can ESMO do? So first of all, and I remember the psychiatrist of my institution telling that describing is already part of the solution. We first need to create a committee, a structure which really stresses the problem and addresses the problem. And we created Women for Oncology to observe, report, inspire, and support women. So let's start as the first point, which is more about observe. We need to act as an international observatory to monitor and sensitize the oncology community. So we do it by constantly, and I would say consistently, describing the picture in Europe and around the world. How are the women represented in the oncology field? Doing a monitoring study that you repeat every year. Of course, we discuss the data in interactive talks. We discuss the data in forums, sometimes going beyond oncology. And we have to publish everything, our Facebook page, in order to make sure that the message is conveyed everywhere. Second point, we act as a career booster, supporting women in their professional development. And it's not because women are not as good as men, but we need to really help them to gain self-confidence. So we do mentorship sessions, we do forums, we do interactive talks. And remember, for young oncologists, we have leader generation programs, which are always having half women, really putting them in the context of a very strong training. And of course, last but not least, to go from the ESMO to your local politics, to your local realities. And we need to have a network undermining behind the ESMO Women for Oncology, which is a national network. And you see this national network is growing from India to Italy to Hong Kong, because the message translated into politics has to have a regional skeleton to make sure that the things can be acted on. Think about childcare, think about working hours, think about everything which is basically national politics. And that's very important to us. Of course, you have understood that one of the conclusions is that organizational change is hard. Diversity initiatives must be accompanied by action and accountability. You need deliverables in everything which is done. Diversity policies can backfire and fail without top-level active engagement, a strategy, and a budget. So it's not just a thought, it's really a project per se, which needs all the structure of a project and often increase the burden on already burdened, meaning that unfortunately, this project has to be led by women who are already over busy, but we are doing that all together in order to reach our aim. And at the conclusion, I like this sentence from Mary Bird, fixing the system, not women. It's hard to lean in when the system slaps back. So Mary Bird was telling you can't easily fit women into a structure that is already coded as male. You have to change the structure. And with this, I thank you for your wonderful attention.
Thank you very much, Solange, for indeed, this was a fantastic talk as always, and the topic which is too close to my heart as well as yours. So,
Yes.
so there were several questions which I received prior and which are coming to me. And in the interest of time, we can take few questions. But so we will start, and later also I will communicate with you, and I will pass on the many queries and concerns of our women oncologists from India and neighboring countries. So the
Yes.
first, interesting question, which two, three of my colleagues, they asked that, how you are a visionary, definitely, Solange, and you kind of pioneered this momentum, the Women for Oncology in ESMO. So people want to know about your vision, your thought process, because when you recognized ESMO was not really that balanced as far as the gender ratio, but now it is more. It is towards half of the members are women, and even the leadership role. Every aspect. So how you did that?
Yeah. So, well, we have to be careful. It's a little bit in my field, it's what we call smoking prevention policies. It's the same thing. You need always to keep an eye on that. So when I came, I wouldn't say that ESMO was an old boys club, but was close to be an old boys club, right? Meaning that the same people were giving roles to each other repetitively, without enlarging the group, and of course without creating diversity. I even suspect that I entered the board because they needed a woman, and I was pretty nice in terms of polar height and so on, so they decided to take me, ignoring that I would create all these kind of things. But what I mean by that is then you start to create diversity step by step. So it's one committee, two committees, and it's a repetitive work. So every time you have a meeting, a program, a webinar, a summit, you need to ask what is the proportion of women being in the committee, speakers, or even writing the article, and so on and so forth. So you have to repeat. Now, when I receive a program as president for, I don't know, for example, a preceptorship, I always receive the program plus the geography of all the speakers and the woman representation. And they perfectly know that if they don't come with 40, 45 women in terms of percentage, I will send it back. So, I mean, it's a repetitive process, and you need to insist. You need sometimes to be disliked because it breaks some of the projects of other people, but diversity is the center of everything. Basically, what I fear and why I say we need to pay attention to that is after COVID, I think many women will disappear because we couldn't move in science because we had to take care of the grandma and the family and the kids who were not going at school. So I think after COVID, we might go back to something like 30% women speakers at meetings. So we have to be very careful because apart from the pain of the horror of COVID itself, I think it has potentially degraded the position of women. Once ESMO has created diversity, then ESMO cannot do politics, meaning that I cannot come to France and say you need to create childcare facilities or you need to promote part-time job. So once ESMO has created this network, then everybody has to bring it to home. And that's also a huge effort. You have brought it to home, but it's not easy to bring the message home, right? So I think it's really a collaboration.
Absolutely. I think very well said and very well perceived. We have to be, stuck to our plan, and the goal is, still, there's miles to go before we sleep, I would say. So the efforts are, commendable from ESMO, from you, and the collaboration is also from other national bodies.
Yeah.
So another question in the same line, that how can ESMO and other national, so international bodies and national bodies, what is their exact role? How they can, collaborate in the best possible manner to give the best advantage to the women oncologists? What is your thought on that?
I think it's bi-directional. I think what you can first provide as ESMO, because we have time and money to do that, is to provide the data, because you probably met that. But the first time you come telling there is an imbalance, there is a gap, the first reaction usually of men or community is to say, no, it's not true, or not really true, or not so important as you say. So ESMO can perform, be the observer, can perform the survey, the study, and give the picture, which is a scientific picture, irreproachable, right? So what ESMO can do is to set the scene for any other move. So second thing is we have some material, right? We can give slides, we can give material, we can offer some options. So what we can help also is to show the landscape of options that people might have to act on that. But then, as we said, then you have to take it home and to work on that yourself. On the other hand, other direction, ESMO has to identify the young oncologists, the women oncologists who are brilliant. Because if you look for them, you find them in GI, in breast, in thoracic, in sarcoma, you find them. And we need to bring them on the scene. So it's the other direction. We need to grab the ones which we can really bring on the scene. So it's two things, back home and back to ESMO. I think it's a kind of bilateral effort.
Absolutely. Again, I think you are spot on, and this should be, everybody should take this message, in a very big manner and try to follow as much as possible. On the similar line, people wanted to know that, powerful women, you are in a power position, and the similar kind of women, what should be their role once they achieved what many people look forward to help the fellow woman or budding oncologist or the women from other geographic areas.
Well, first of all, I think it's good to have women in my position, because at the end you need to understand that it's sometimes probably by chance and by mentorship. I think identifying men who have the same consideration about, I would say, career regardless of gender is an important thing. But I would say it's probably good to be able to show that any woman can reach this kind of stage. But then I think wherever you are in my position, it's paying attention to things which is important. I always say, even in my country, the worst happens in little things, right? The little stereotypes which might happen every day, the little thing, the way people address you, the way people tell your name, the way people, so you have to constantly pay attention, very politely, of course, to anything which creates a situation where you feel like you are weaker than a man. There's no reason, right? You produce data, you treat patients. So at every little signal of feeling that you are weak, you should struggle why and fight against it. Because women can have anything they want. They cannot have everything, meaning that you cannot do everything well. You cannot be a mom, an organizer. But if you want to be a wonderful physician and scientist, you can be that. Never accept any remark or note that might make you doubt that, right? So I think it's a constant effort to inquire internally, right? Why do I sometimes feel weak or ridiculous or shy, or because there's no reason.
Right. So very well said. So in the same context, I also wanted to just quote here that, about the data which you said was very, very important. So when we used to talk about this women for oncology or gender gap, and etc., there were very little fraction of people who were really serious about it. And people used to laugh and they take it as a joke and very lighter vein. But when we did this large survey from the ESMO, and we did that in India as well, and we produced that, and that scientific data. After that, many people, even if it was difficult for them to digest that, but they had to believe that these are the real facts and they exist, and people need to do something about it.
Absolutely.
So I think that is very good message you have given. Another thing people wanted to know about is that about the stereotyping, about the last sentences which you made. So this is day to day and everywhere, private practice, be it as an academic institute, women, they they were made to feel that they are kind of inferior, or even if they are equally skillful, or even at times when they are more. And rather, it is also a perception, if they are more skillful, people try to dump them even more. So, and many people feel that there is people gang against them, and there are at every level, and it's very difficult to circumvent. So what is your suggestion how to go about it? Because again, as you know that women in authoritative positions are less to support these younger colleagues, or even people in their middle of their career, and those who are, they also do not want to come into direct confrontation. So then
Yeah.
they feel lonely, and what those situations, even people wanted to know how national or international societies can help them, and what should be the way forward.
So two things there. Probably you're right. The most difficult thing is stereotypes. We all use stereotypes, and we shouldn't feel innocent. We all use them in daily life, because if you use stereotypes, they make your life easier. Stereotypes are just short ways to reach a conclusion, right? And we all use stereotypes. Stereotypes that for example, a man cannot do two things at the same time. Women do not drive well. All these kind of things. We all use stereotypes, and we joke about stereotypes. So we shouldn't be so much, I would say, upset because there are still gender stereotypes, but we should not accept any stereotypes. You need to be conscious about the fact that they are everywhere. They are in the public, in the advertisement, when you see perfume, they are on the TV, they are in every word we use, they are in the tone of the email you receive from the pharma industry. So there are stereotypes everywhere. So very politely and very nicely, you need to correct the stereotypes. You don't know how many times per week I remind people about who I am, my title, what is my first name, what is my second name. My name is not Peter. I'm a woman. My first name is Solange. So you know what I mean? So, and you need to always kind of repeat, because no aggressiveness. We are always reproached to be aggressive. No aggressiveness, just reminding people that there's no difference, and that this thing you just said is a stereotype. So that's a constant work, but by doing that, we will eliminate them, right? So second thing is feeling alone. That's a problem of women. That's a problem of minorities, right? When you are part of the minority, it's difficult to prove solidarity. When you know there's only one position for a woman, it's difficult to share your way with another woman. So when you are really a minority, you sometimes fight against the other members of the same minority groups. And this should never happen. Women do not support women. Usually women fight against women. They compete against the other women. And this will be a huge blockade in the advancement of women. So we need to create a group of women who support each other and really promote each other. So when I do a program, I put women. When I ask for an award, I put women, and so on and so forth. So that's really about being in this solidarity concept among women.
Great. So it's really nice. And towards the last question, because we are running short of time, questions will never end. So the people are asking that if something is happening which is kind of not perceived by a woman oncologist that it is good for them, whether it is a small event or a big event. Even people wanted to ask, in the current context, at times there is sexual harassment at different levels, subtle level, very prominent level. So whom they reach if they are not finding any comfort or supporters in the near vicinity? Do international bodies like ESMO or national bodies, they can really help, and what should be done for that?
Yeah, it's interesting, because these are the kinds of topics which should be addressed as a concept, and not at the time somebody is already attacked or affected by such an event. So any company or any society should have a way to discuss what is any kind of harassment. It might be not only sexual, but harassment. So meaning you should have human resources, or I would say similar structures, which allow you to freely describe something which is illegal. Because remember that everywhere in the world, harassment is not legal. So really, it's something which you should even check when you start being the boss of something. Do I have a structure that is adequate? If I would mismanage my staff, can they go somewhere? Because if somebody is sexually harassed, it's too late. It's too late, because then you will build something unstable around a very important topic. So that's really something which it might be worth for our members to look at. What do they perceive as being the solid structure to be able to receive complaints in a credible way for all these kind of things? You know, sexual harassment is very fragile because, well, first of all, it's a shame to have to describe such a phenomenon. Most women feel like being ashamed and ridiculous to describe this kind of things. And second, their credibility is very often questioned when they come somewhere, right? More and more, and nowadays it starts again that the Me Too is questioned. People say it's exaggerated. No, it's not exaggerated. There was a time these kind of things were socially more or less accepted, and it's not accepted anymore. I even remember in my institution, a big professor was telling, if it's like that, I will stop to have students who are women, because then they will complain. And I answered to him, if you feel like sometime you are in the gray zone with women, it means you are in the black zone, right? You never should feel like you are in the gray zone. It means you are in the black. So behave correctly, that you always feel in the white. It's not possible that you just imagine like that you might be reproached anything, because a behavior has to be impeccable. So it's really a very big topic. And, you know, we should do surveys, but it's difficult to do. But you really understand the frequency and the addressability of such complaints in our societies. I'm sure they're way more than we suspect.
So thank you very much, Solange, and you know, I would love to be part of such momentum, and if we can do anytime such global efforts, so that really things would be better for everyone. Yeah. So with this note, I would end here, and I will send you many other questions which you can answer later. And for here again, thank you very much. It is really a boost for every one of us, for India, for our neighboring countries, that you have come here, you have spent your time for all of us, and it will be a great collaboration which is already going, and which will go on. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.